Yeah, to this day, many people online still believe Luke Daly is the abductor, is the person seen in that surveillance footage from Nancy Guthrie's home, or believe that he's involved in the case. And it wasn't just Luke who was detained that night. His name posted everywhere now for weeks. It was also his mom's. Both of them have been released, and now they've sat down with me in interviews today to talk about how they were questioned by FBI agents and sheriff's deputies in this investigation. To understand this, I want to take you back to the night that this all unfolded. It was a dual SWAT operation back on the night of February 13th, while Luke Daly was detained outside Culver's with his Range Rover searched and towed away. His mom, Mary Chapman Daly, was detained at their home not far from Nancy Guthrie's while agents searched inside. Both Luke Daly and Mary tell me they weren't given a lot of answers as to why they were being investigated while sitting in the back of police cars for hours. For Luke, despite getting released that same night and telling me he has gotten his Range Rover back, many online still believe he matches the physical description of the abductor on that surveillance video and suspect he may be involved in her disappearance. He says he is not, but he says mystery still lies in what evidence led detectives to Luke at all.
It was a quiet morning on a normal day. The time was early, just after sunrise. The date was a day that started like any other. Nothing looked strange. Nothing felt different. Inside the home, everything seemed calm. There were no loud sounds, no signs of trouble, just a regular routine beginning, the kind of morning people do not think twice about. But this day would not stay normal. As the hours moved forward, something began to change, slowly, quietly, in a way no one around could clearly see at first. This was not a sudden moment that everyone noticed. It did not start with noise. It did not start with chaos. It started in silence. The kind of silence that hides what is really happening. People nearby continued their day. Cars passed. Doors opened and closed. Life moved forward like nothing was wrong. But inside, a serious situation was forming. A situation that would later make people stop and ask questions. What really happened in that house that morning? What was going on that no one could see? And how did a normal day turn into a story that many people would talk about later? As time passed, the truth slowly came to light. Details began to surface. Events were put together step by step. And what was discovered did not match the calm beginning of that day. This is the story of what happened, how it happened, and why it still leaves people thinking. Listen closely, because every small detail matters. Before we begin, if stories the media ignore deserve justice, then subscribe to Unseen Crime Dossiers right now. Like this video so more people can see the truth. And comment below if you believe these voices deserve to be heard. Share this story, because awareness can change everything. Welcome to Unseen Crime Dossiers, where the stories the world tries to forget are finally uncovered. Stay with us, because every case you'll see is shocking, true, and you won't want to miss a single detail. Nancy Guthrie grew up in the United States in a structured and stable environment. Her early life followed a common pattern of school, family routines, and community involvement. There were no widely reported unusual events during her childhood. She learned basic values that shaped how she would later approach life, including discipline, communication, and responsibility. These early years helped form a foundation for her future decisions and public work. During her younger years, she focused on education and personal development. She spent time learning how to read, write, and communicate clearly. These skills later became important in her teaching and speaking career. People who knew her described her as someone who paid attention to detail and followed a steady path. Her early environment allowed her to build confidence in expressing ideas, which would later become a key part of her public identity. As she grew older, Nancy began to think about long-term plans. Like many people, she considered what kind of life she wanted to build. This included thinking about relationships, work, and family. Her choices during this period were guided by her beliefs and the examples she had seen growing up. She did not follow an unusual path, but instead moved step by step toward building a stable future. Nancy Guthrie later got married and began a new phase of her life. Marriage marked a shift from individual planning to shared decision-making. Together with her husband, they started to build a life based on common goals. Their focus included creating a home, supporting each other, and planning for a family. This stage of life introduced new responsibilities and expectations that required careful planning and cooperation. As a couple, they had clear family goals. They wanted children and hoped to raise them in a structured and supportive environment. Like many families, they likely imagined a routine that included daily activities, growth, and shared experiences. Their plans were centered around building a stable household where each member would have a role. These goals reflected a common desire for continuity and long-term stability. Their early family planning stage was based on expectations that are typical for many couples. They prepared for the responsibilities of raising children and managing a home. This included thinking about time, resources, and daily structure. At this point, there were no public signs that their journey would take an unexpected direction. Everything appeared to be moving according to their plans. This period of Nancy Guthrie's life is important because it shows the starting point before major events changed her path. Her early background, marriage, and family goals created a clear picture of what she intended to build. It was a simple and structured beginning that followed a familiar pattern. Understanding this stage helps explain how later developments stood in contrast to what was originally planned. Family life for Nancy Guthrie began with a clear plan and shared expectations between her and her husband. After their marriage, they moved forward with the goal of building a home centered on structure and routine. This stage marked the transition from planning to action, where daily life started to include responsibilities connected to raising children. Their environment was set up to support growth, stability, and long-term development within the family. The first major step in this phase was the arrival of their children. The birth of a child introduced new routines, including feeding schedules, medical checkups, and constant supervision. These early days required careful attention to detail and adjustment to a different pace of life. Like many new parents, they focus on meeting the needs of their child while learning how to manage time and responsibilities. This period is often defined by observation, as parents watch closely to ensure the child is developing normally. As time passed, certain patterns began to stand out. There were signs that the child was not developing in the same way expected for their age. These signs were not immediately clear, but they became more noticeable over time. Changes in physical response, feeding behavior, or general activity level can lead parents to seek medical advice. This step usually involves routine visits to healthcare professionals to identify any underlying concerns. Medical evaluations began as part of understanding what was happening. Doctors conducted tests to examine how the child's body was functioning. These tests are designed to measure different systems, including metabolism, movement, and response to stimuli. The goal of these examinations is to find clear answers based on evidence rather than assumptions. During this process, information is gathered step by step, often requiring multiple visits and follow-ups. The results of these evaluations led to the discovery of a rare medical condition. This condition affected how the child's body processed essential functions needed for normal growth. It was not something that could be easily corrected with simple treatment. Instead, it required ongoing monitoring and specialized care. The diagnosis provided an explanation for the unusual signs that had been observed earlier, bringing clarity to a situation that had been uncertain. Following this discovery, daily life changed to include new routines focused on medical care. This included regular checkups, adjustments in feeding or medication, and close observation of the child's condition. The family had to organize their time around these needs, ensuring that every requirement was met as accurately as possible. This stage required consistency, as managing a medical condition involves following specific instructions over a long period. As their family life continued, the presence of this condition became a central part of their experience. The initial expectations of a standard routine shifted to accommodate ongoing care and monitoring. This phase shows how quickly plans can change when new information is introduced. It also explains how their family structure adapted to meet the demands of the situation, setting the stage for later developments in their story. The next phase in the story of Nancy Guthrie focuses on a medical condition that shaped her family's experience. The illness affecting her children was a rare genetic disorder that interfered with how the body processed basic nutrients. In simple terms, the body could not break down certain substances the way it should. This caused a buildup of harmful materials in the system, which slowly affected major organs. Conditions like this are often difficult to detect early and may not show clear signs of birth, making diagnosis a step-by-step process based on observation and testing. As the condition progressed, the impact on the children became more visible. Normal development slowed down, and basic functions required more attention. Feeding, movement, and response to the environment were all affected. Medical care became more structured, with regular monitoring to track changes in the body. Doctors provided guidance on how to manage symptoms, but the condition itself did not have a simple cure. This meant the focus remained on care rather than recovery. Over time, the illness placed increasing limits on the children's health. Each stage required adjustments in daily routines, including more frequent medical visits and careful observation at home. The situation required consistent management, as even small changes could affect overall stability. The family followed medical advice closely, using available treatments to support the children's needs. Despite these efforts, the condition continued to progress according to its natural course. The loss of the children occurred after this extended period of medical care. The condition reached a point where the body could no longer maintain basic functions. This outcome is common in severe genetic disorders where treatment options are limited. The timeline of events was not sudden but developed over time, with each stage leading to the next. The final outcome marked the end of a long process that had been closely monitored from the beginning. After the loss, the structure of daily life changed completely. The routines that once focused on caregiving were no longer needed in the same way. Activities that had been centered around medical care, appointments, and monitoring came to an end. This created a shift in how time and attention were organized. The household environment also changed as the physical presence of the children was no longer part of daily life. This stage introduced a new direction for Nancy Guthrie's public presence. Instead of focusing only on private family matters, she began to speak about her experience in a more open setting. She explained the sequence of events, from diagnosis to outcome, in a clear and structured way. This shift moved her story from a personal experience into a subject that others could learn from and discuss. Her ability to describe the process step by step made her account accessible to a wide audience. The events in this phase are important because they show how a long-term medical condition can affect a family over time. The illness, the care process, and the final outcome all contributed to a complete change in daily life. This part of the story connects earlier expectations with later developments, showing how initial plans were replaced by a different reality. It also explains why her story became widely known, as it presents a detailed example of how people respond to complex and ongoing challenges. The next stage in the story of Nancy Guthrie begins when her private experiences became public. After the events within her family, she started to communicate what had happened in a structured and clear format. This shift did not happen all at once, but developed over time as she chose to speak in controlled settings. These settings included small group meetings, church gatherings, and organized events where people came to listen and learn. Her focus was to explain the sequence of events in a way that others could understand without confusion. She began by sharing her story in spoken form. During these sessions, she described the timeline of her family life, the medical condition, and how each stage unfolded. She used simple language and avoided complex explanations so that her message would be easy to follow. Listeners were able to track the progression of events from beginning to end. This approach helped her reach a wider audience because people from different backgrounds could understand what she was saying without needing specialized knowledge. As her speaking continued, she expanded into writing. She started to document her experiences in books and written materials. Writing allowed her to present her thoughts in a more detailed and organized way. Each section of her work followed a clear structure, explaining specific parts of her story step by step. These books were distributed through publishers and shared in different communities, making her message accessible to people who were not present at her speaking events. Her written work also served as a reference point for discussions. Readers could go back and review specific sections, which made it easier to study her ideas in detail. This contributed to the spread of her story beyond local events. People began to share her books with others, and her name started to appear in study groups and organized discussions. This process increased her visibility and established her as a known figure in certain circles. At the same time, recordings of her speaking sessions began to circulate. Audio and video formats allowed her message to reach audiences outside of physical locations. These recordings were shared through online platforms, expanding her reach even further. People who had never attended her events could now hear her explanations directly. This created a wider network of listeners who became familiar with her story and her way of presenting information. As more people became aware of her work, a following began to form. This group included individuals who regularly listened to her talks, read her books, and shared her content. The growth of this audience was gradual but steady. It was driven by consistent communication and clear presentation rather than sudden attention. Her ability to maintain a structured message helped keep people engaged over time. This stage shows how a personal experience can move into the public space through organized communication. By speaking, writing, and sharing her story in different formats, Nancy Guthrie built a platform that reached a wide audience. The development of her following was based on repetition, clarity, and accessibility. This transition marked a point where her story was no longer limited to her immediate environment, but became part of a broader discussion. The next phase in the story of Nancy Guthrie focuses on how people responded after her message reached a wider audience. As her speaking and writing spread, more individuals began to form opinions about her work. These responses did not follow a single pattern. Instead, they developed in different directions based on how each person understood her message. This created a situation where the same story was viewed in multiple ways at the same time. One group of people became supporters. They followed her teachings, attended her events, and shared her materials with others. These individuals often stated that her structured explanation of life events was clear and easy to understand. They appreciated the way she presented complex situations in simple terms. Many of them used her books and recorded talks as part of group learning sessions. Over time, this group continued to grow as more people were introduced to her work through recommendations and shared content. At the same time, another group formed with a different perspective. These individuals did not fully agree with her explanations or the ideas she presented. Their concerns were based on how they interpreted her message and whether it aligned with their own views. Some questioned conclusions she reached, while others examined the way she explained certain events. This group also shared their thoughts and discussions, creating an alternative viewpoint that existed alongside the support she received. The presence of both supporters and critics led to a wide range of opinions. Instead of one clear reaction, there were many different interpretations. Some people focused on her personal experience, while others focused on the ideas she taught. This variation showed that her story was not being received in a uniform way. Each person brought their own understanding and background into the discussion, which influenced how they responded. These different opinions began to appear in both offline and online settings. Offline, discussions took place in small groups, meetings, and organized gatherings. People talked about her story, asked questions, and compared their thoughts with others in the same room. These conversations allowed for direct interaction, where participants could explain their views step by step and respond to others in real time. Online discussions expanded the reach of these conversations. Social media platforms, comment sections, and forums became places where people could share their opinions with a larger audience. Messages could be posted, read, and responded to by individuals from different locations. This created a continuous exchange of ideas that did not depend on physical presence. As a result, her story remained active in public conversation, with new responses appearing over time. This stage highlights how a widely shared story can lead to mixed reactions. The combination of support, criticism, and varied interpretations shows that public response is rarely uniform. Nancy Guthrie's work became a point of discussion across different platforms, allowing people to engage with her message in multiple ways. This ongoing exchange of views helped maintain attention on her story and ensure that it continued to be examined from different angles. The next stage in the story of Nancy Guthrie involves a deeper examination of her ideas and the way they are understood. As her public presence grew, her discussions about life, loss, and hardship drew attention not only to her personal experiences, but also to the broader principles she presented. Central to her message was the concept of suffering and how individuals experience and respond to it in their daily lives. This focus became a major point of analysis for both followers and critics. Her explanation of suffering emphasized that difficult events are part of life, and that they could be understood through structured reasoning and reflection. She described how challenges, such as illness or loss, can be examined step by step. By breaking down complex experiences into clear stages, She allowed her audience to see patterns in how situations unfold. This approach presented suffering as something observable and understandable, rather than entirely chaotic or random. Her method encouraged analysis of both causes and responses, without relying on overly emotional explanations. People interpret her message in different ways depending on their own perspectives and backgrounds. Some individuals focus on the practical elements, noting how she organized her experiences into understandable steps. These followers appreciated the clarity and structure she provided, seeing it as a guide for handling difficulties. Others concentrated on the philosophical or spiritual aspects, considering her ideas in light of personal beliefs or values. This dual focus created a layered understanding of her work, where the same story could provide both practical lessons and conceptual reflections. The discussion around her approach also considered the implications of presenting suffering in this manner. Some observers argued that her structured presentation helped others make sense of experiences that might otherwise feel overwhelming. It gave listeners a framework for thinking about challenges and encouraged deliberate action rather than reaction. Others questioned whether a structured explanation could fully capture the unpredictable nature of hardship, suggesting that some elements of experience might remain outside clear analysis. These debates contributed to ongoing public conversation. Her message was further examined in written and recorded formats, which allowed people to revisit the ideas at their own pace. Books and recordings gave readers the opportunity to reflect on her interpretations of events and how they related to broader concepts of struggle and endurance. This access allowed her work to be discussed in study groups, classrooms, and informal gatherings, where participants could explore the content in detail and ask questions about the reasoning behind her explanations. The deeper discussion also highlighted the range of emotional responses her work could provoke. Even though her delivery remained factual and structured, some people found clarity and guidance, while others engaged critically with the assumptions she made about the nature of suffering. This variance in reception demonstrated that her ideas were complex enough to sustain repeated analysis and debate. Each interaction, whether supportive or critical, added a layer to the collective understanding of her message. Ultimately, this stage shows how Nancy Guthrie's story moved beyond personal narrative into a broader exploration of human experience. Her structured approach to difficult events allowed audiences to analyze, interpret, and reflect on suffering in a systematic way. The discussions generated by her work reveal the complexity of understanding life's challenges and how one person's method of explanation can influence many others. This phase marks the point where her story became not only a record of events, but also a topic for reasoned thought and public discourse. Here at Unseen Crime Dossiers, we're driven by a mission to uncover hidden realities, honor forgotten voices, and keep their memories alive. If this story made you pause, reflect, or feel something, there's more coming that will challenge you even deeper. Make sure to hit subscribe, tap the like button, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a case. We're dropping new episodes regularly. And trust us, what's ahead is even more chilling. Before you go, we want to hear from you. What moment hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments. Your perspective matters, and your voice helps keep these stories alive. Until next time, stay alert, stay informed, and never stop seeking the truth, because every life deserves to be heard. Thanks you all for watching.